So good morning, everybody. Good morning to our HCAR members and members from across Maryland. My name is Sarah Anderson. I am the president of the Howard County Association of Realtors. And I am so honored that we have 2022 president of the National Association of Realtors here with us this morning, Leslie Rouda Smith. I'm going to introduce her in a second as we get going. But I just want to remind everybody before we jump into this phone call that our HCAR Education Conference and Expo is coming up on March 3rd. This is going to be awesome. We're going to have a legislative breakfast. We will have safety training. We will have a Rockstar Realtor panel giving us some business building ideas, as well as continuing education and some wellness information. So please hop on the website, hop on the calendar, and get yourself registered. So as we go through this Zoom this morning, everyone will be on mute, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And as we get towards the end of our conversation, we will try our best to answer them. So now I'm going to go ahead and again introduce Leslie Rouda Smith, our 2022 president of NAR. Leslie is from Plano, Texas, and she's been a realtor for 36 years. She is a broker associate at the Dave Perry Miller Real Estate, where she specializes in residential, ranch, and country real estate with her husband, Brian, and their children, Kristen and Austin, all of whom are realtors. Leslie has been a member of the NAR Board of Directors since 2009, thank you for your service, and has served several years on the executive committee. Her service resume at NAR is lengthy to say the least, and includes chairing the Leadership Academy Advisory Board and the Professional Development Committee, as well as sitting on the Finance, Strategic Thinking, Communications, and Research Committees, among other volunteer service. In her community, Leslie has volunteered on behalf of affordable housing programs, neighborhood revitalization, and housing opportunity initiatives. She has a bachelor's degree in communications from Ohio State University, where she was named an outstanding young alumni. Go Buckeyes. Leslie, it's an honor to have you here with us this morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Are you a Buckeye fan too?
I have family in Ohio. I can't say it's the team that I root for first, but absolutely.
Okay, that's all right. Just along the way. But I was brainwashed growing up, so unfortunately, that's my team. I can't change that.
There you go. So Leslie, we're going to kind of get right going with it this morning.
All right.
And you've been talking a lot about your NAR initiative, which focuses on 3 S's. And we'd really like to hear more about these 3 S's. So can you give us an overview of this vision that you have for your 2022 presidency?
I would be happy to, Sarah. So I don't really know how I came up with my 3 S's. I just had things that were important to me and they all happened to start with S. So staff said, let's call it your 3 S's. And I said, all right, let's go with it. One of them, and first and foremost, is safety. I want to make sure that every one of us gets home every single night safely. I had a friend who was left for dead in a vacant home, and I had 2 other friends that were held at gunpoint. The one that was that almost died, she actually got back into real estate. Bless her. I don't know how she did it. The other 2 got out of the business. One of them was raised in the business and she never was active as a realtor again. So it was just always sad to see really great people leave our business because of incidents like this. It's also very scary, as you can imagine. So I just want to make sure that we as realtors have each other's backs, that we are very conscientious of where we are. And, our gut checks tell us something, because I hear stories all the time about people saying, I just had a feeling. So make sure that you're always, top of mind, your own safety, watching your back, letting people go in before you, making sure someone knows where you are, but also go to nar.realtor/safety. And you can find all kinds of information there. So if you're a manager or a broker and you're looking for office meeting material, I guarantee you'll find plenty there. There are videos and other things that can help you with your agents, or if you're an agent, to help you in your listing and selling of real estate so that you are safe always. And we did have a recent incident in Florida. They thought it was the owner of the property, and she was a realtor, just like all of us. So let's just all be very careful and very mindful. And my second one is strength. And we're at about 1.6 million members as the largest trade association in the world. And I just, obviously we have the strength in numbers when it comes to Capitol Hill. We are a nonpartisan political action committee and association. So we represent all of us, which is sometimes not an easy task, but it only has to do with homeownership and private property rights. We don't get out of our lane. But also when it comes to strength, I think of mind and body, because I think of what we've been through, especially the last 2 years. And I hope we're all taking good care of ourselves. Get outside, go for a walk, enjoy nature, do what you need to do to be the best form of you. And as my husband always says, make sure you put the right gas in your tank. And I'm not an angel when it comes to that. I eat junk food every now and then because you just have to, right? It's life. My third S is sustainability. And I just look at the things that we do that we could do better, or maybe not do at all, or do another way to leave this a better place for the generations to follow, especially since we have 2 third-generation realtors that are on our team, our 2 kids. I think one thing that really hit me hard, not only just the obvious that we all know, like the water bottles, there's just too many of those out there. And I did a beach cleanup last summer, and they were talking about just little itty bitty pieces of styrofoam and plastic and what it does to marine life. And then when they die and wash ashore and they, look inside to see what they're full of, it's awful. It's heartbreaking to even think just a little piece of something can do that. So being the overachiever that I like to be, I was not going to be done with my beach pickup until my bucket was filled by me. I wouldn't let anybody put anything in my bucket because it was going to be full before we were done. And I accomplished that, but I still wasn't done. And I haven't quit thinking about it, knowing just what goes on in our world. And we can be better stewards of the land and this earth for generations to come. And I would just like to see us be a little more sustainable. And just to give an idea of, why that's so passionate to me is my husband and I own ranch land in North Texas. I got to Texas as quickly as I could and wrote me a cowboy. So we do have some property, and we work a lot with sustainability, wildlife enhancement, erosion control, things like that. And in 2011, we won the Lone Star Land Steward Award from the Texas Parks and Wildlife for all the work that really my husband did on the ranch. So it's just near and dear to my heart. And I hope people are enjoying this earth that we have and taking good care of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that overview. And we appreciate you kind of giving us the view from high level on it. So let's get into it a little bit deeper. I'd like to talk about each of those objectives that you mentioned, safety, strength, and sustainability, and how HCAR as a local association is already supporting it or can support it in the future. So starting with safety, obviously this is an important issue for us. Our industry is targeted sometimes, unfortunately, by predatory behavior. Last year, we were lucky enough to receive a safety grant from NAR to hold a Safety Month kickoff event here. We invited Carl Carter from the Beverly Carter Foundation to talk about our members about what happened, sadly, to his mother, and about the work he's done since her death to promote realtor safety. We also hosted a Krav Maga instructor to teach our members some basic self-defense techniques. And at our annual conference this year, we will again offer the self-defense course that includes information specific to realtor safety. Can you tell us a little bit more about the safety objective and anything that's new and coming down the pike from NAR on this important subject? And what are some ways we can further support and promote realtor safety for our members?
Well, we have things online that you can go find at nar.realtor/safety. There are videos. They're always working on new things to help us because there's always some new scam or whatever it may be out there. And, when I think about our safety too, even spam email and people impersonating you kind of fall into that category. I know that I'm going to throw this out there because I don't think a lot of people realize this. I'm one of these people on Facebook that if I don't have at least one friend in common with you, then you can't, you can see my stuff publicly. But what people don't realize is that a lot of these people, when you see them basically stalking us on social media, hello, how are you doing? I mean, I think we all know what that is. But the other one that we see a lot of is I want to be friends with you, but it wouldn't work when it went through. Will you please friend request me? Well, if you would just take 1 minute of your time, not even 1 minute of your time, go to their page, you will find out that page was probably created for sure within the last 48 hours, but maybe in the last 4 or 5 hours. They most likely are in a military uniform and they have dogs and children, anything to pull at your heartstrings. It only takes one friend to accept that friend request, then they now have access to me, because that's how I have my page set up because of my position. You need to all realize those are bots, as in robots. They're not real, but then again, they're annoying. And there were a lot of posts last night because my local board did something for me after an event. And I mean, there's some of them that are on every single post. And we all need to be cognizant of that, because those are, in a way, they're stalkers. And we all need to help each other. So when you accept a friend request, don't just accept them. Even if you have a couple friends in common, go check them out and look and see. I mean, if there's 20 pictures and they've all been posted in the last 4 or 5 hours, there's your first clue. So just be cognizant that when you do accept that, you are opening them up to all of us. And that is a safety issue, in my opinion. So just be careful. I know we all have people who impersonate us on social media, and just block them, do whatever you can to keep them from infiltrating into our group of people, meaning realtors. So I think that's something that we could all do a little bit better. As little time as I have, I don't even accept anybody on LinkedIn or anything, because unless I check you out first. I mean, I'm going to go look and see who you are you who you say you are, and who are we connected to that are mutual, so that I can make sure that I want you in my world. So you have to also look at it that this is the preliminary step that people are going to take before they decide who their next victim is. So this might be just where they start. So be aware of that, and don't just look at it like, well, the more the merrier, because in this case, it's not. So be very careful. And a lot of times, if you look at some of these, 9 times out of 10, they're widowed or divorced, which is obviously, there's a reason for that. They're looking for someone in a weak moment who will, decide that they want to connect with them and converse. So just be really careful, because that is where a lot of this begins. But there is a lot on nar.realtor/safety. And if you can't remember what you're looking for, if you just go to nar.realtor and put it in the search bar, you'll find pretty much anything that you were looking for. But they're always working on new videos, examples of things that have happened to realtors. And, we seem to only hear, and we don't even always hear, about a realtor who loses their life because of the business that we're in. But trust me, there's a whole lot more that goes on that we don't hear about. And some of those are highlighted on the safety, part of the website at nar.realtor. And do know too that there is an alert system that is available, that is there at nar.realtor. So check that out if that is something of interest. But don't ever go on an appointment without somebody knowing where you are. And that gut check, like I said, is so, so important.
I really like how you just emphasize the point of digital safety, right? Because generally we will go to this place of, being safe at showings and on listing appointments and stuff like that, and meeting new people. But it really is important for our members to be aware that when people are searching for victims, one of the first places they go is online. So if you're giving folks instant access to yourself, not knowing who they are, you're making yourself unfortunately more vulnerable to what could become a more complicated situation, even worse than just identity theft or a digital crime or something like that. So I think it's nice to hear a nice reminder for us to understand that the first step in how we can be safe is how we present ourselves to the public.
Well, absolutely. And another thing too, Sarah, sorry, is that, like on Instagram, if you go look at Instagram and someone who starts following you, because I don't have a private page because I'm basically a public figure, but if you go look at them, and it's a lot of the things I just said about what you find like on Facebook, but when they have, 3 followers and they're following 3,000 people, and they have 0 posts, there's your first clue. They're stalking. That's their full-time job. And that is why, and then they go like all your pictures, which means they are looking at everything about you, which is like step number 2. And you think that, oh, it's not a big deal. They just, oh, I just have nice pictures. It's my family. No, that is not what is going on. That you just need to be careful. And I am in a situation where it's a little harder because I don't want to block out any of our members. So I have to be really careful and even more careful. So just be careful with not just being out there actively in our business, but what goes on behind the scenes is also important. So absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. So I'll move on to the next question, which is going to focus a little bit on the strength objective. And we know that there's power in numbers, and NAR has great numbers. We have excellent membership. Our association here at HCAR has grown considerably over the past 2 years. And in fact, we've surpassed the minimum membership count required to obtain a seat on NAR's board. So we're very excited about that. We use our collective voice to advocate locally for private property rights and home ownership. And we look at strength here from a variety of perspectives. We're looking at strength in RPAC, in voicing perspective on local issues, in how we best support diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit more about the strength objective and how we as a local association can support it?
Sure. Strength, obviously, like I said, in numbers is a part of that strength. And for those of you who don't know, we have the most, as we say, bipartisan political action committee when it comes to our work on Capitol Hill. But in my opinion, we are nonpartisan, not bipartisan, because I think there's more than one party out there. So that makes it nonpartisan to me instead of bipartisan. And I'd rather see us start using that vocabulary because it's more inclusive. But no, we are very fortunate to be the largest trade association in the world, but there's a lot that comes with that. We are also known as the political action committee that does look at the issues that affect private property rights and home ownership, and that we're not looking at what party you come from or social issues. We're really looking more at what affects us in our business. And I bet you can all imagine, out of 1.6 million people, that's how many opinions we have. So it is always interesting to lead a group the size that we have here, because trust me, I hear it from all of them. Certainly, I have my own opinion. I try to keep it to myself because I was elected to represent all of you. So when I look at our strength, I look at the strength of what it looks like in the way of those that are elected to look at the realtors for advice, information. And just to give you an idea, I testified before Congress last month on veterans housing, and there are a lot of issues there that we need to work on. And I have a special place in my heart for veterans. I come from a very patriotic family, and I think there's a lot of work to do, especially in a market like we're in right now, where there's just such low inventory and you have to jump through hoops for those loans, that they aren't always the ones who are accepted for that reason, because we are in such a seller's market. So there are a lot of things that we can work on. That would be one I would love to see all of us work on, is helping our veterans get into a home. Because in my opinion, anyone who is willing to sacrifice their life for our freedoms deserves to own a home and have a roof over their head.
Excellent. Yes, and we definitely appreciate NAR advocating for those issues for us as in a nonpartisan manner at the federal level. And our membership here is very active at the state and county levels to ensure that those things are protected here as well. Let's move towards your sustainability objective. And basically, sustainability is important on many levels, from not just an environmental level, but housing costs and housing sustainability and building quality structures. And we're always looking for new ways to be more environmentally friendly. Here at HCAR, a couple of the ways we've done that is we have answered NAR's call to join the Food Recovery Network, so that leftover food from our larger events is redistributed to those in need in our community and gets put to good use rather than going to the landfill. And we also, our members are really appreciating this. We also began offering quarterly shredding and e-cycling services. And everything that is collected is decommissioned and safely recycled in a secure manner. Talk to us more about sustainability. Why is sustainability as it relates to housing important? And is there any kind of sustainability policy that we can create that will help lead to more housing opportunities or housing stability?
Well, congratulations on the things that you are doing to be more sustainable. This could go on forever. I could probably have 2 days of discussion with you on this subject matter. I would love to see that we don't use as many water bottles, even if you cut one out of your day, and start using something that can be washed and reused over and over again instead of all the plastic that's going in the landfills. One thing that just about drove me crazy, that I want to start the flower recovery network, because after my inaugural in San Diego 2 months ago, these gorgeous flower arrangements, they were wheeling trash cans around and just dumping them. And they were just made that day or the day before, and they were gorgeous. I mean, retirement homes, hospitals, there are plenty of people who would love them. How about even the attendees would probably have taken them had they known they could. So that was kind of a green light, red light that went off, like, we can do something about that, but that doesn't look good. So that's a green light, red light to me, where we need to think about what can we do to be better and more sustainable. And when you think about it, when flowers die, they're great compost too. So there's another way that we could be more sustainable. I think one of the things when it comes to housing, I have a concern for the future of water, because I think, obviously water is important to all of us. We need it to live. And I drink more water than probably anybody I know. That is my favorite drink, water with lemon. So if you ever want to know what I want, that's what I want. That's my number one choice. And I do think that I would love to see us have a sustainable bottle, whether it is something collapsible, which I would prefer not, only because I don't want plastics of any kind, even if they're not throwaway, but with refill stations. And you don't see that a lot. We're starting to see it a little bit more. And certainly, since you can't go through security with liquid, you have to have something to fill up with one of the filling stations if you choose to. And that, I just think we all need to be more cognizant. Another thing that a lot of times, like, let's say you leave the water running while you're brushing your teeth and you go grab something. Don't let the water run. Because if you think about all the people on this planet did the same thing that you just did, we're wasting water. So be cognizant of every single thing you do, and think of it, if everyone in the world did this, what would this world look like? And I know I can be better, and I know we all can be better. And we need to continue to work to be better so that we can leave this place better than we found it, which to me is part of our job of living on this planet. And, I could go on, and I would love sustainability tips too, if anyone has any. And I would love sustainability tips that don't just require you to have land. That would be something you could do in an apartment. I mean, water bottles are, across the board. That works for any of us. Certainly green, anything that we can do to help the environment with our homes, whether it be, rain harvesting, solar power, whatever it may be. I know that years ago in Austin, Texas, they tried to make it where you had to retrofit your house green, and you couldn't put it on the market till you did. I am not in favor of that. And the reason is because there's a lot of people who couldn't afford to do that, said they'd never be able to sell their house. So it didn't make any sense. There's got to be a better solution than just flat out saying, yeah, well, you need to put $25,000 in your house before you're allowed to sell it by law. That would be a real problem for our industry. So there are things that we can do. There are things we can do to be better. We do have a sustainability advisory group that was created in 2020. And, they are a part of our governance structure. And these people are hugely passionate about sustainability. I learned something from them all the time. But one of my dreams this year, and I would love for any input from anyone, is I'd like to plant a tree for every member to help reduce carbon emissions. And just because it helps with so many things, the more trees we have, and when you think about how many trees are cut down, for the paper we still continue to use. And I'm just as much at fault, but again, we can all be better. So I would love to hear if anyone has any input. I've actually heard some great stories about some things as I've traveled around the country. So if you have a great story on sustainability, please share.
I'll just mention that in the chat, one of our members, Anita Castell, has reminded everybody that when we're doing remodels, taking things out of the house that can be reused to a local salvage yard instead of the dump is a big one. And many of our members know that here in our region, Habitat for Humanity will take a lot of those things for some of the builds they're doing in Baltimore City and beyond. And then another big one around here is a group called Second Chance, which does architectural salvage. And so when you are doing a kitchen remodel, if your kitchen cabinets are in good shape and things like that, see if they can be used somewhere else, and creating those relationships with organizations so that we know that that stuff's going to go somewhere and get used right away instead of going into the landfill. So thank you for that.
Great point.
Yeah. We see a lot of things. We've seen some energy initiatives in our region as well, and not to the tune of like $25,000, but you know, utilities that are providing rebates for people that are going to make energy efficient measures in their home. The water concern is certainly a big one, because if we can find out more ways to use water efficiently, I think that will also allow us to create more housing density in areas where it is absolutely needed. And I love the idea about the flower recovery program, because that's just such a great way that could brighten so many people's day. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll look forward to seeing what else comes up in the chat as we continue our conversation. I will mention one issue that Sarah Rain is reminding me of right now is that recently in our county, one of our legislators proposed making all new construction electric only. There would be no new gas powered properties. And this was a big controversial issue just because gas is a pretty affordable and cheap resource here, and there are a lot of reasons to use it. So we have this ongoing conversation about, is the availability of gas and the way that that gets delivered to consumers environmentally friendly versus requiring all electric, and what the side effects of that are as an energy resource. So it's an ongoing thing in our community that's going to keep coming up. So thank you, Sarah. That's an excellent current point for us to keep in mind. So we're going to go ahead and shift now to a little bit about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And this is a huge issue here at HCAR. Last year, we created our DEI committee, and this group has hit the ground running. We have just recently held a town hall to discuss redlining and the historical reasons why that came into existence. We've added DEI resources to our website, and our DEI committee just launched a video campaign, and we're looking at a number of other initiatives to make our association more inclusive of all of our members and those who aren't yet members. What can we expect to see from NAR in the coming year on this important topic? And do you think DEI relates to creating more opportunities for everyone in the industry, as well as more opportunities for home ownership?
Well, the last part of what you said, I certainly hope is the case, because that is the goal, is to be more inclusive and have more people involved. I think that everyone, no matter who you are, where you're from, whatever you may be, that everyone has the opportunity and the right to have a home and a roof over their head. I know that there are a lot of things that have happened in our past, and it's actually sickening to look at. I hope that people who aren't aware or who think that we are putting too much effort into DE&I will actually do some research on their own to find out exactly what our history shows, because it is important to know your history to be able to go forward. And we had created a thing called ACT, which was before COVID hit. So really before a lot of this hit, but it was, about being actionable and culture change and training. And there was just, there are so many pieces to the puzzle. And certainly, I hope everyone knows that DE&I and what it stands for: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when you even look at leadership across the board for many years at our local, state, and national levels, it hasn't really fallen under what we might, consider DE&I today. And that's sad, because I think we all know that there are a lot of very capable people that should have had opportunities that maybe didn't. I know that, in a smaller way, I've had my own situations being a woman in a man's world all these years to even get where I am. I'll be the 7th woman president in 115 years, but we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. I can tell you that your 2022 leadership team is certainly all in, all on board with DE&I and continuing to move it forward. We do have some things that we offer that I hope, if you haven't looked at, that you will. And if you do look at them, and like I said, I hope everyone will, because you should. But it's okay to do things more than once, because we don't absorb everything the first time we hear it. So one of the things that we have is the fair housing, it's called Fair Haven simulation. And you sell 4 houses, and they're all simulations that I guarantee you, I don't care who you are, you're going to learn something. Now, you do sell 4 houses, but you don't get any commission for it, but you will learn a lot. And that takes about an hour and 20 to an hour and a half, but it's worth it. And as a realtor, you owe it to yourself and the people you serve to understand everyone that you work with and beyond. So make it a point to take the Fair Haven simulation along with implicit bias training, which is about a 50-minute video. And I think I've watched that one 3 times, and I'm about ready to watch it again, because you don't absorb everything the first time you watch it or hear it. So there's nothing wrong with doing it again. And then the third one would be the At Home with Diversity, which is an 8-hour certification course through the National Association of Realtors. And to be honest with you, every single realtor should do all 3 of those, hands down. I don't think it should be a question. Maybe I think it should be, yes, we should all do that. And I think it should be a requirement that everyone does it, because we all need to be more aware of what goes on around us, even if it doesn't affect you. So I think that, DE&I, we've come, I can't say a long way, because I know we have a long way to go, but we are making progress. And, like, again, as your president, I am open to anything that you would like to share with me, no matter what it may be. But I do think that this focus of DE&I is really important to our business, just not us as realtors, but certainly the consumers. And if you look at history, if you can look at the history of how things have happened before our time, it really will open your eyes to the reality of what some people have lived through. And certainly generational wealth, for the most part, is created by home ownership. And not everyone has had that opportunity through the generations that have preceded us. And that's not right. We should all have the same opportunities to build generational wealth for our families and for the future of our families and for ourselves. So we need to continue to work on that. And in my personal opinion, we will always work on that, because it's something that will always need to be looked at. And again, if there's anything I can do to help along those ways that we're not doing, I'd be certainly open to hearing from all of you.
Excellent. I like the way you kind of just also made a point to highlight how DEI and fair housing, they intersect. They are definitely connected. And so to mention the Fair Haven training, the implicit bias training, and the At Home with Diversity certification, I will remind all of our membership that we do have an At Home with Diversity course coming up very soon. So please check the calendar for that. The content is invaluable. You will learn things that you just probably never crossed your mind, but will certainly be valuable to you in all of your relationship and dealings going forward as it relates to DEI. The other thing I wanted to mention was back about the Fairhaven training. Last year, our Fair Housing Committee did issue a challenge to our membership during Fair Housing Month. Keep an eye out for that challenge coming again, guys, because we will be trying to get 100% participation from our membership on the Fairhaven training. So please keep an eye out for those things. And I think Jessica put the registration for the At Home with Diversity in the chat. If anybody wants to sign up right now, that's awesome. Thank you. So moving along, so we're super excited that this year's mid-year legislative meetings and Expo, they're going to be held here in Maryland at National Harbor, which is kind of our backyard. Is there anything you could share about the conference that's going to get our members excited and ready to go?
Well, I can be assured, and so can you, that Shannon McGann, who she's our Chief Advocacy Officer, that she will have great things planned for us, because that woman knows everybody in Washington, D.C. Like literally, I'll say someone who's like on TV and she'll go, let me text them real quick. I'm like, really? Like they're going to respond to you? And yeah, she gets an answer back just like that and says, oh, well, the answer is, I mean, we're going to be in a meeting and she'll get an answer back. So I can be assured, as you can, that we will have great programming, because Shannon McGann will make sure that we do. The reason why we are moving our location, for those who don't know, we had a 30-year contract with the Marriott Wardman in conjunction with the Omni, so that, you know, if one of them didn't work, that we weren't obligated to the other based on our contracts. As you all know, the Wardman has closed. They are not going to reopen. They are tearing it down, is what we heard. After selling the part of the hotel as condos, they're tearing that part down too, I understand. But you all probably know more about that than I do. But we were kind of left homeless with nowhere to go. And we tried to get downtown, and there was just no way we could get anything booked. And as you know, we've been virtual the last 2 years, and we sure didn't want to be virtual again this year. And the only option we had was to go to the Gaylord National Harbor. And I'm not too sad about that at all, because I love the water. So being on the water will make me happy. And the Gaylords are spectacular hotels for those of you who've been to those. So I think it's going to be awesome. I love it. And it's funny, at the meeting I had yesterday locally, I had a guy who was from another state. I don't know what he was doing at our meeting, but he said, so why are we having it in Maryland? And I said, well, here's your choice. We have it in Maryland, or we have it virtual. Those are the two options. So which one would you rather? He said, I'd rather have it in person. I said, well, there you go. So anyway, I am super excited about this, that we're going to be in your state. And I think it's gonna be a great meeting. I know we're all gonna be very excited to get together, and hopefully it'll be really, really successful at that location, and we can continue to use it. If not, I'm sure it won't be too far from where all of you are, because I know staff is working on that right now, and we don't know anything yet on the future of where our legislative meetings will be held, but excited about this year for sure.
It's a great location, and they're very well equipped to have us there. So I think our legislators will even enjoy, hopefully, coming out to the National Harbor and getting a little change of scenery for themselves. And I think we may even have some attendance that we haven't had in years past, just because driving to National Harbor is actually a little bit easier than driving into DC, for at least some of the folks around here with DC traffic. So we're all very excited about it. At this point in time, I mean, I'd like to, if there's anything else that you'd like to add, please feel free to share some notes with us, and I will look to the chat to see if we have any questions about those 3 S's of safety, strength, and sustainability, or if anybody has any comments that they'd like to add to the conversation.
I'm happy to answer any questions. In the meantime, while you're looking to see if there are any questions, I'll just throw some things out that maybe our members don't know, that we have about, I don't know whether it's like 78 or 9 member countries of the National Association of Realtors, with 100 bilateral agreements. And a couple of weeks ago, I signed a bilateral agreement with Turkey. And it's just kind of amazing when you look at our fall convention, which is the one in November, will be in Orlando this year. We usually have 2,000 to 3,000 that come from other countries. So we are very global. And if you don't have your CIPS, that might be something that you might want to look into. But global is a really big part of NAR. If that's something of interest, you might want to think about it. But if you're not involved, I hope you will get involved, because committee work is where we start rolling up our sleeves and making things happen. And obviously that's where I started. We all start somewhere, and committees is where we start. Committee applications for NAR will open up again in March, and then they close down on May the 13th. So that'll be for 2023 committees. And keep in mind that committees are not the only thing that we have. We also have work groups, task forces, and PAGs, which are presidential advisory groups. So if for some reason you didn't get what you wanted or didn't get on a committee, there's always other opportunities out there. Make sure that your profiles are up to date and that your picture actually looks like you now, and that we can, get a better idea of what your expertise and interests are. And my recommendation would also be to make sure that the most important part about you is in the first few sentences, because we do look at thousands and thousands of applications. So if the more important part needs to be up front in case we don't get through the whole thing, because there are so many to go through. So I hope all of you are on committees. I tried to put every single person who applied on a committee, unless there was a reason not to, and there might have been 5 or 6 of those, but everyone else got on a committee that did apply. Although I have had some people say they applied and they didn't get on one. And then when I look back, they did not apply. So, sometimes we forget to hit the submit button and those things happen. So, I've done my best to try and accommodate it before we got into this year. But if you are interested in committees, go to nar.realtor, put in the search bar committees, and look at the different descriptions to see what fits your niche and what your interests are.
Awesome. I love that call to committee work. And just in hearing you say that, it reminds me that the spirit of volunteerism and being committed to a committee is really going to help with your sustainability efforts and your strength efforts, right? Because we don't have a strong, resilient staying power if we don't have a good pool of volunteers for our committees or task forces or PAGs, all of those things. So I see it helping in that aspect. And then obviously the strength with the different perspectives from the different people that apply to the committees, they're just going to enhance the organization. I want to let everybody know and let Leslie know that our Maryland president, Craig Wolf, has a push this year in his presidential year to encourage more involvement, more volunteer participation with our state association and with the national level. So keep in mind that, when you volunteer at the state and the national level, not only are you strengthening the industry for everyone, but you're strengthening it for us here at the local associations as well, because you're letting your voice be heard on a larger platform. And I will just take a moment to remind everyone, you've probably seen it. There is going to be a webinar on January 27th, where Allison Del Sapo and some other great panelists are going to be sharing the many benefits and rewards and the commitments of volunteering in those state and national committees. So, and that is again in line with the task force that Maryland President Craig Wolf has launched. So we hope that you will all be aware of those things coming up. So
everybody's voice matters, and we want to hear your voice. And if you are so fortunate to serve at the committee level at the local, state, or national association, make a difference and say something, be involved, be engaged in it. And one thing that I've really tried really hard to push the last few years is you're listening here today. You probably learned something you didn't know. Use what you learned to your advantage with your buyers and sellers. When I was chairman of Texas, we had a Proposition 1 that had an increase in our homestead exemption. And I asked, how many of you in this entire ballroom are sharing about why it's important to get out and vote for Prop 1? Not one hand went up. And I thought, well, if you use what you learn at these meetings and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, did you know? We're working on this on Capitol Hill. We passed or defeated this in our favor. This affects home ownership. Are you interviewing any other realtors? And if they say yes, say, well, you know what? Why don't you ask them what their thoughts are on this? And more than likely, they're not engaged. They're not coming to these meetings. So when a seller asks that realtor about something, they won't even know what it is. And it certainly makes you look good to get the listing.
That's an excellent
And
point.
it works. I've tried it.
Absolutely. There's the altruistic side of volunteering, but then there's also the practical side, and that's that you get information and a leg up on hot issues that other agents who aren't participating aren't going to have. So give yourself that advantage of commitment and learning about the current issues that are going to affect housing in your region. So that's an excellent point. Anybody, I'm going to look in the chat again and make sure I'm not missing anything. If we have any notes or questions. Joanne Poole's asking us to post the link for the Maryland Realtors webinar about volunteering at MR and NAR. So we'll make sure that gets out to everyone. Laura Jones mentions that being on the legislative committee has given her a leg up with clients. And that's, again, a very real thing. When we had the tax issue here in Howard County a couple of years ago, I know the people on the legislative committee, they again had the leg up here. So that was legislation that went into effect 3 weeks after it was passed. So the realtors that knew they had to recalculate the tax numbers for their clients looked a whole heck of a lot more professional than all the other agents that were like, wait, what is this? So Laura and Steve, thank you for your commitment and everything that you guys offer that to that committee. You're helping our industry and you're helping our members. Sarah's getting the link for Joanne in the chat. We've got a few more minutes. If anybody would like to ask a question or propose a comment, we are glad to hear it.
While you're looking, I will say Joanne Poole is one of the greatest assets of your awesome state of Maryland. She's one of my favorite people. And Eileen Kessler was also someone who is very special to me. I went to Maryland to speak at your Leadership Academy graduation several years ago. Actually, it was the year that Eileen passed away, and they wanted to order crab cakes. And I was like, I love seafood, but I don't like things that are greasy. So like my bacon, I don't want to see my reflection in it. It has to be like not shiny. So anyway, they said, oh no, you've never had a Maryland crab cake. And I was like, so how are they different? Well, y'all, I'm in love with Maryland crab cakes, and they're the only ones I'll eat. So anyway, Eileen and Joanne have made sure that I've had plenty over the years. And I do miss Eileen a lot because I think of her every time I eat a Maryland crab cake. But you all do have the best, and I will second that motion.
We are known for it, and we definitely appreciate and honor Joanne for everything that she delivers to our industry. And while I didn't know Eileen personally, I know she has left a legacy here in this region that people just continue to talk about. So two excellent professionals and just excellent human beings.
Absolutely.
A question has popped into the chat from Ms. Laura Jones, and this is a great question. With Spanish-speaking clients being the biggest projected growth sector, are we as realtors doing any marketing or work towards that? And Laura, I'm going to assume you mean on the national level. So are we doing anything to make sure we're
I know that there are a lot of things that are translated, but in the way of work, I'd probably need to have you be a little bit more specific. But I think that, our communications committees, the member one and the consumer one would be the ones that we would want to work with on that. So I'm all ears. Y'all just let me know what you need. I live in Texas and I should know my Spanish better than I do, but for some reason, all I learned seems to slip my mind. And I know some words, but definitely a good point and something that we all need to know more about, along with many other languages, so that our clients and customers, feel like they can understand us and trust us that we're doing the right thing. So good point. But yeah, yes, we need to carry that forward for sure.
I'll mention that HCAR is fortunate enough to be partnering with a group in our area called Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Maryland to offer Spanish-speaking home buyer education classes that focus on the process for first-time buyers. They talk about what's an inspection. They talk about what you need from a lending perspective. So we're excited to be, offering that Laura,
Outstanding idea. Very good.
in
Yes.
case you weren't aware of it. Laura proposes making direct marketing to that group and helping realtors work with this growing market. Absolutely. There's a bunch of different ways we could continue to identify to do that. Kelly Hilmar, my colleague from Leadership Academy here in Maryland, reminds me, Leslie, that you spoke at our Leadership Academy class graduation, which I think was in 2017. And thank you for coming out to Maryland to do that.
And that's when I had crab cakes.
That's probably when the crab cakes happened.
So I'm almost a 5-year follower of Maryland crab cakes.
Excellent. And that was a great Leadership Academy. We had 4 people from Howard County in that group, and they all went on to serve on our board here at Howard County.
Well,
So
it's working, and that is awesome. It's interesting. I think it was in April. I don't know why I remember something like that. But then in May was the legislative meetings. And excuse me, I remember standing in, I guess you guys have like a little hospitality suite. And I was in there with Joanne and Eileen as we were wolfing down the Maryland crab cakes. And that is my last and one of my most fond memories of Eileen.
oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So we've got just a couple more minutes. I don't see anything else in the chat. So what I would like to do is I'm just going to thank Leslie for her time and for her being here and remind you of the 3 S's: safety, strength, sustainability. Think about how they are relating to our industry, our careers, our housing, and how we can assist NAR in making sure that those initiatives are successful throughout 2022 and beyond. And Leslie, if you'd like to say anything else before we kind of wrap things up, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I really appreciate all that all of you do for our profession and for home ownership and private property rights. There's always a lot of work to do. We need great people like you to be involved in committees. So if you're not involved, I hope you'll get involved. And, it's funny. I've always heard that, oh, I'm too busy. Well, I can assure you there's probably not a lot of people more busy than I am. And I still manage to make it work. I still manage to find time for myself to exercise, take care of myself, even if it's in a hotel room. But I think that there are so many things that we can all give, and we need to take advantage of these opportunities to be involved, to participate, and to make a difference. And again, remember the things that you learn so that you can share those for the betterment of you, your business, and the people that you serve. So I would say continue to be involved. I pretty much, our team lives off of referrals, and it's what we've created through all of us being involved over the years. And I would also say too, that, back to the social media thing, if you can tell a story about one of your clients that you've worked with that, maybe bought a house and sold it for a lot more, and look at what they have now, that's what people want to hear. It's real. And our daughter made a post a couple weeks ago, and within hours, she had 8 new buyers and sellers from one post. That post was also shared 971 times, which I personally have never seen before, but it just shows you that people want information.
And they want it from someone they trust, like your
That's
daughter.
right. Yeah. And when you post it like that, that makes them trust you.
Right. We are very much in the people and relationship business, and that's a great reminder. So, well, I just want to thank everybody for making the time to be on this webinar. I want to thank staff for helping organize it. I want to thank Leslie and the team at NAR for making the time to put us on the schedule. I will hand it over to staff at this point to put any other reminders or volunteers in the chat that we need. And Leslie, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing progress on your initiatives in the future.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Howard County. It's nice to spend the time with you this morning while I drink my coffee. So have a wonderful day, and cheers to an awesome 2022.
Cheers, you too.
Thank you.